Hey everybody, what's happening? Happy Monday. Here we are, October 8th. Hope you guys are all good. I'm out here in New York City enjoying some cooler weather today. It was funny because it was like nice and cool for like 3 days. I was like, I'm loving this. And then yesterday, just fucking return of the scorcher. Return of the wet clothes. The wet clothes walker. Oh, I hate humidity. God. I'm telling you, man, if New York wasn't so cool, I'd probably never come back. People talk about that winter, like I said before, but fuck the humidity. Anyway, I don't know. I'm just complaining. I love it. All right. So let's see what we got today in the cooker. What do we have on the stove? Today I got a great guest, man. I know a lot of you guys love when I have drummers on, and I feel like I've had some of the best drummers in the business, no matter what type of music it is. I've had the people sit down here. I always believe, and I've said it a million times, you don't have a good drummer, you don't have a good band. That's all there is to it. It's that vital. And then there's great drummers, and then there's next level drummers. Drummers that seem to become superstars just on their own. Doesn't matter what band they're in, they're an absolute god because of they've pushed the boundaries. They've gotten extreme on their instrument. That's what my guest today has done. He has made himself a household name in the metal world of drumming. Mr. Gene Hoglan is my guest today. The atomic clock, son. Speaking of atomic clock, what about McGregor? He got the atomic clock. Oh, man. Woo! What a weekend at the UFC. Anyway, back to my guest. This guy has played with everyone. He is currently out on tour with Testament. He has played with Anthrax. He's played with Death. He was a lighting guy for Slayer early on. Oh man, the stories this guy has. It was amazing. We were just ping-ponging back and forth about our lives back in those early days of speed and thrash metal in the Bay Area. What a time to grow up, man, to be in that. It was just epic. And whenever I can sit down with someone like Gene, who was also there, and we're digging deep into it, I go crazy. I could talk about that shit for hours. Just so iconic and historic. Those bands and what they did back then. And Gene was there, and Gene was playing drums, and he's been playing drums ever since. And it was an honor to have him on. What a god on the instrument he is. And also we talk about other cool stuff like health. Gene has recently lost, I think, 140 pounds, which is insane. I lost 40 and I thought I was cool. This guy lost 140. So we get into how he did that and all kinds of fun stuff today. So sit on back and enjoy the ride with Gene Hoglan. This is a fantastic episode. Before I go any further, just a few things here. All Things Comedy has launched a All Things Comedy Specials.com. That's ATCSpecials.com, where you can find all kinds of All Things Comedy comics posting up specials, all kinds of recordings, records, everything, anything comedy. They're going to be launching these cool specials on here, and they just started with Ted Alexandro, recorded live at one of my favorite venues in the world, Village Underground. Get on ATCSpecials.com and check out Ted's special right there. It's only $5. And there's going to be all kinds of stuff coming up on ATCSpecials.com. So very excited for that. And those guys over there, Bill Burr and Al Madrigal, get on that, man. Easy way to watch comedy. You just pop on, no commercials, none of that bullshit. No edited specials. Right there, boom. a full special for you on the fly, on your phone, computer, TV, whatever you want to stream it on. Check it out. What do I got coming up? This Friday, I head to LA to do Strange 80s 2. I will be there at the Fonda Theater singing a couple songs, maybe telling a couple jokes, hanging out with some of the best in rock and roll. Scott Ian's going to be there. Eagles of Death Metal guys. Who else is going to be there? I think some, let me look. Here it is right here. Strange 80s 2. Fonda this week. Slim Jim's going to be there. My favorite. Remember him? I had him on. Great drummer, Slim Jim. Corey Taylor from Slipknot. That's going to be rad, and I might be getting him on the podcast. Hoping on that. All kinds of people. We're going to be jamming. It's for a great cause. Check it out at the Fonda this week in Los Angeles. Also, Las Vegas. I got some shows coming up. I will be at the, let's see here, the Cellar, Comedy Cellar, December 26th through the 30th. That's going to be rad. Okay. Couple more announcements, then we'll get into it. Patreon.com/Dean Del Rey is where you find the bonus Del Rey episodes of Let There Be Talk. It's me, solo, talking about all kinds of cool stuff. Check it out, patreon.com/Dean Del Rey. I want to give a shout out to some new Patreoners. James DeWeaver, love you, buddy. James DeWeaver, and also Seth Hogan. Seth Hogan, brand new, not Rogan, Seth Hogan. I wonder how many people stop and go, Rogan? No, Hogan. Seth Rogen, huh? Oh, man, that must drive him crazy. Anyway. Check all those out. Bonus episodes. I think number 5 or 6 this week. You guys have been digging it, and I love that. Thank you so much. That's about it right now. I do want to get into something that's near and dear to me. If you really want to donate to something, if you listened to my episode about 6 months ago, maybe longer, I think it was about 8 months ago with Ship John Mike. Do you guys remember him? Ship John was the company that made my jacket, and Mike makes all kinds of handmade goods. He was on a handmade episode, and a dear friend of mine, he had a party for his new Ship John shop up in Portland on Saturday. Everybody went. I couldn't make it, but it was all kinds of fun people up there. Westco Boots, Good Art was there, Josh. Everybody was there celebrating, having a good time. And then at the end of the night, when he was locking up the shop, he was attacked on an attempted robbery. So I don't know the whole story yet. I'm just getting it from his family and friends who have been emailing me. But he was attacked with a hatchet over his head and fucked up pretty bad. And he had to go to the hospital. And this guy had a couple surgeries already on Saturday and Sunday morning. He's got a family and he's got a business. And this is just fucked and just terrible news. And I just can't believe what kind of shit people did this, but forget about all that. Let's help out Mike by donating to his GoFundMe page. Now, I'm going to tell you how to get there. It's pretty easy, but it's GoFundMe.com/Mike dash, and I'm going to spell his last name for you, ELIAS dash hospital dash amp dash recovery dash fund. Now, I know that's a lot of shit there, so just go to my Twitter and hit the link, or just type in GoFundMe and then on Google and then Mike ELIAS, and you're going to find it. But go to my Twitter and get the link, and please donate to him for his hospital fund, man. This is just insane. But hopefully he's going to be okay. I think he left the hospital today. And if you don't know him, go listen to the episode because he's just an amazing human. He plays music. He makes stuff with his hands. His story was incredible. You know, he bounced around and then landed in Portland, living in a van. Now he's got a successful, cool business of making jackets and backpacks and all kinds of stuff, wallets. The guy's an amazing man. So, donate to his GoFundMe, please. I guess that's about it right now. I love all you guys, and I hope you love this episode. Gene was just an amazing guest and a home run. Let's get the candles lit right now. Here we are, Gene Hoglan. Boom. All right, here we are. Another episode of Let There Be Talk. Great guest today. Introduce yourself, my man.
Howdy, everybody. This is your big buddy, Gene Hoglan.
Gene Hoglan, metal drummer king. It's funny because we've never met, but I know your work. I'm old friends with Michelle Meldrum.
Oh, no shit.
We were friends since the early Phantom Blue days.
Okay, awesome.
When she was signed to Shrapnel.
That's right.
And I think the first time your name came up was when she was, right before she passed, she was working with you.
That's right.
And she was like, yeah, I got Gene Hoglan playing. And I was like, God, I don't know him. And then she's like, oh, he's the metal god, you know? And then I looked into it and I was like, wow, this guy's a monster
Very
on
nice.
drums.
Very cool.
And of course, when you think about metal drums now, I think it's like Lombardo and you are the names that constantly come up.
Oh, very cool. Well, thank you.
Yeah. I don't know I know you're playing with one of my favorite bands of all time and favorite humans, Mr. Chuck Billy.
Oh, awesome.
And Testament.
That's right.
And we're very old friends.
Oh, killer.
Back for probably 30 years.
No shit.
Yeah,
Badass.
maybe a little longer. I had him on the podcast a couple years ago. It was one of the greatest episodes.
Nice.
Because he tells the whole, tumor story
absolutely.
and stuff. But let's get into your gig. I don't know where you're from. You live in San Diego now.
That's right.
I know you've played with Anthrax, right?
Yeah, I fill in for Charlie every now and then.
Right.
Absolutely.
You played with Testament, of course.
That's right.
And let's go through the people that you've played with in the metal world.
Well, let me see. I started, actually, my very first band was with Michelle Meldrum when we were teenagers, and I'd met her in...
Orange County?
No, I met her in the Bay Area.
Oh, Bay Area.
And at that time, I was on tour with Slayer. I was their light guy.
Uh-huh.
And I was 16.
Whoa.
I was a kid,
Are you a Bay Area guy?
No, and I'm from here in L.A. essentially. I was born in Dallas, but raised in Long Beach and the whole general L.A. area. And on tour with Slayer in '84, and that's where I met Michelle. And
Which record's that?
It was between Show No Mercy and the Haunting the Chapel EP.
Oh yeah, whoa, really early.
And
so were they playing at the Stone? Or?
No, they were doing
Ruthies.
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 Yeah, Ruthies,
Wow.
and it was Exodus headlining Slayer.
Bonded by Blood. Paul Bailoff era.
Yeah, that's right. Pre-Bonded by Blood. This
Right.
was June of '84. So they'd probably recorded it. No, don't even think they recorded it yet. But yeah, it was June of '84, and it was Exodus, Slayer, Possessed. When Possessed, I don't know if you're familiar with them.
Of course,
legendary. Yeah, totally. He doesn't like that.
Yeah.
But Possessed were amazing, and God, I remember James Hetfield and Cliff being there, and that's where I met Michelle, and that was awesome. But
And what was she doing there? Was she doing the record?
no, she was, she was 14 at the time,
Right.
Maybe 15. And she hadn't done anything yet.
Right.
She just had her name in a few of the fanzines that were going around.
But what was she doing in the Bay Area? Because she's from L.A.
Yeah, that's right. I don't really know, but she was staying in Concord at the time. And what she was doing at the show was actually being in my way.
Yeah.
I was like trying to do the lights from the side of the stage.
Uh-huh.
there was this female just right in front of me on a little platform. Just
And the only
rocking
female
out.
probably at that show.
10 guys to every guy back in those days. And and I just had to kind of like say, excuse me, do you mind just, I had to kind of move her out of the way. And then we started shooting the shit afterwards. And I remember seeing James Hetfield in the front row, thrashing, banging for Slayer. And I was like, badass. All right, cool. And then for their encore, they kicked into a version of Witching Hour from Venom.
Yeah.
And great song. Slayer does a great version of it. I just remember James just like in the front row, arms crossed, just shaking his head, looking down at the stage, just shaking his head. And I was like, what's your problem, dude? Come on, man, they're doing Venom. Come on.
Yeah.
And but I just thought I thought it was cool. He was thrashing, and hey, he was giving his opinion.
Why was he not down with that?
I don't know. It's like, Metallica.
Maybe it was like sacrilege. You don't do Venom song or something.
Maybe so. It was
wild.
But anybody can play Venom songs better than Venom, so give it a shot.
It's pretty wild that you. You start out as a light. Are you just friends with Slayer, and they go, "Hey, you want to do lights? We're going to San Fran." Or how does this happen?
Yeah, that was it really how I got the gig was back when Slayer was an LA band, and they were so heavy, so over everybody's heads.
Yeah,
they had a core audience of seriously about 30 people. That was it. That was the only people that were into Slayer was us 30 folks, and you'd always see the same heads at the shows, and I had just become friends with him over time, and I had already, like, by the time Tom, we were at a show, and their light guy hadn't showed up, and Tom just turns to me, he's like, "Hey man, you think you can run that light board over there?" And I was like, "Yes."
Yeah.
15-year-old kid, I didn't know what I was doing, but I was like, "Sure, no problem." And this is back before carding, IDing. I was a 6'3", 15-year-old, and I facial hair and all that, so I didn't look 15, so I could get into any club.
Right.
But the next show after that, same deal. Light guy didn't show up. Tom's like, mind trying it again? And so just after that, I would just show up at the shows and just walk straight to the light board and start doing my thing. And rudimentary light boards, they're not real technical. So.
And you're not playing drums at the time.
At that time, no. And so when I was playing drums, but I hadn't been in any bands or anything like that of any note. So after, I remember Tom had to come to my house to talk to my parents to release me on the road, and he's like, you were a minor. I had to go square it with your folks. And so we did the tour. It was a Haunting the West Coast tour, and
where did it go?
Yeah,
San Fran.
Yeah, L.A., San Fran.
Like Santa Barbara or something?
There was like Portland, and Seattle, and Olympia. And, the opening acts for a lot of these shows were all acts that became gods, Metal Church in the Washington area shows. And, of course, Exodus and Possessed, But Exodus did headline at the Ruthie show.
Right.
But, Ruthie's legendary place. It was already legendary for our scene. So after I got back from that tour, on that tour, I was also, I was Dave's drum tutor, his words. Like he was just kind of getting to know double bass at the time. And, I've told the story many times, but, I went to Tom's house where they rehearsed, and Dave was always a single bass player, and he had a double bass set up now. And I was like, cool, dude, you're doing the double bass. He had tried it. I remember before they recorded Show No Mercy, he brought out a double bass for one of the shows that they had done. And I was surprised when they recorded Show No Mercy with a single kick, because I was like, dude, you're playing double bass already. He's like, yeah, I'm not getting it. So I was like, let me give it a shot. So I sat behind his kit, and I just flew on the double bass. I was just cooking, trying to, playing all the stuff that he was trying to do. And he just tripped out. He's like, dude, I've been to your house. I played your kit. You have a single bass kit. When did you get a double bass? How long have you been playing double bass? And I seriously looked at my watch, and I was like, what time is it? I've been playing double bass for 3 minutes.
Wow.
First double bass kit I ever played was Dave's, but I grew up an air drummer. Like I'm a huge proponent of air drumming to teach you how to play drums. And so
just for body movements a lot too, because it has to do drums with timing, and it also has to do with the timing comes down to of muscle movement and muscle memory.
Absolutely.
You know? Yeah.
And if you start ingraining that in yourself early on,
Right.
when you sit behind a double bass kit for the first time, or if you're an air drummer and you've never played drums before, if you are a diligent air drummer, by the time you put sticks in your hands and you're playing the kit for the very first time, you've already got a concept of, you've got you've got a grasp of what you're supposed to be doing. So
right.
putting sticks in your hand and actually hitting things with them, it just works out really good in your favor. So any people out there that have always wanted to be a drummer but haven't ever played drums, try air drumming. I tell people that all the time, like guys approaching our ages or whatever, they're like, man, I always wanted to play drums, but I could never afford a kit, and I'm busy, I got wife and kids. I tell them all the time, just air drum, just pick your favorite songs and air drum, and seriously air drum. Don't just goof off with it, but you try to figure out what the drummer's doing with his feet, with his hands, and when you start getting a grasp of what the guy's doing and you're applying it to yourself, after you've done one little air drum session, you've just given yourself a drum lesson.
Right.
So that's how that goes.
Do you believe, because first of all, I don't know what you're listening to early on, but to me it seems like, and I've talked to some drummers about this before, but to me the actual double bass drumming in a speed metal kind of form was probably the Accept Fast as a Shark
Absolutely.
record. Don't you believe that? I believe it was
Huge
the first time I heard it. It was like, fast as a shark,
Absolutely.
That was the first. I don't know if there's other bands that were doing it before, but that's where I heard it first.
That was the fastest that we'd ever heard.
Right.
All us drummers, all us metal dudes, and we were all dead convinced. That is the apex, the fastest double bass drumming will ever be. Nobody will ever surpass that, and none of us ever thought that our crew would be the ones that actually did surpass it. But you had bands like Anvil, hauling the double bass. Raven early on with albums like Wiped Out.
Oh yeah,
that's a classic proto thrash record. I suggest anybody check out the Wiped Out album from Raven if you want to hear some amazing drumming, some killer proto thrash kind of approaches to things. And of course, Raven took out Metallica on the first tour, and then they took out Anthrax on their first tour. So the thrash metal scene owes a lot to Raven, beyond the music. And when after that tour that I had done with Slayer, I had also become friends with the band Dark Angel.
Yeah.
And I was doing lights for Dark Angel at the time, and Jim actually approached Carrie because on that tour I was doing Dave's sound checks for him. And
why is that? He wasn't there?
No, it was excuse me. It was merely so the drummer could hear what the band sounds like.
Yeah.
So many times, if you
go out in the room, he can hear what's going on.
Yeah, because nobody ever gets to hear your own band playing your music with somebody who can kind of can do what you're doing, and it was just intended to be just cool for Dave, because if you're a guitarist, you could take your wireless, go stand out in front of house. Singer, same thing. And drummer never gets to do that, so it was like, hey Dave, just go out in the house, and I got your tunes down, so yeah, let me try that. And I remember learning how to play Dark Angel songs with Slayer because they wanted to play Dark Angel in those sound checks. But that was cool. So after that tour, Jim Durkin from Dark Angel had contacted me and said, hey man, let's do this, because he had called Carrie and said, hey man, what's Gene like as a drummer? And Carrie was like, he's a good drummer. He's a whiny kid, but he's a good drummer. Because on that tour, I, like growing up reading Circus Magazine and Cream Magazine and all those things, and I'm a rock fan since I was a child. Like
Same here.
You sound like it. You're very knowledgeable.
Yeah.
So, I remember reading with all your favorite rock stars, how tough the road is, and every rock star was like, oh my God, I just can't wait to go home. The road just sucks. It's terrible. I went into the tour on day 2. I was quoting, old circus magazines with old rock stars going, oh man, touring sucks. This is terrible. You just want to go home. And I think the band was kind of like, damn, really? You want to go home? Okay, well, will not call you back. You
Yeah.
know? And the fact I was a terrible tech, you know, I could do lights well, but I had no idea about, you know, hey, help out loading gear.
Yeah.
You know, Tom's younger brother, Johnny, who you might know, Johnny or he was doing all the work, and I was just, after the show was done, I didn't even put it into my head, like, hey, go help load the van.
Were they paying you?
No.
Nah.
But, you know, I'm still there. I should have been doing something. I had no idea about it, you know, because I never even ventured backstage after the shows. I would just kind of climb off the lighting board and just start talking metal with the locals. Like, hey, you know, who are the other cool bands in your scene here? You know, because I was just a metal freak at the
It's
time.
wild to think that are you guys in a van on this run?
Yeah, that was a van, yeah.
So you're in a van, so it's a van and what, like a rider truck or something for the gear, or everything and everything?
I think there was just one van, you know, fit a bunch of guys. Maybe had a trailer.
Right,
I think had a trailer, maybe.
And you're just out on these early Slayer tours,
Yeah.
you know, because and that's early, you know, hunting the chapel and that stuff, and you get into Die by the Sword and all that.
Yeah.
Early Slayer is, it's really them trying to find their sound. So you're in there. Are they, I mean, you're pretty privy to conversation stuff, and what kind of stuff is going through their mind? Like, we got to get better, we got to do that, we got to, you know, because metal is really ground zero of thrash metal at that time.
Yeah, well, you know, I remember this very well. Was Jeff Hanneman started remarking about Dark Angel, because Dark Angel had, you know, playing shows and all that sort of stuff, and Hanneman was saying, like, dudes, the new Dark Angel, oh my God, it's they are so much better than us. They're heavier, they're faster, their riffs are better than ours. And I knew Dark Angel, they were my friends.
Right.
But I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, you're in Slayer.
Yeah.
You know, like,
Yeah.
you just recorded the Haunting the Chapel. That's gonna fucking crush people. Chemical Warfare, Haunting the Chapel, Captor of Sin.
Yeah.
And
Chemical Warfare. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like,
yeah, that's
nobody was doing something like that, you know?
absolutely. And you know, I was just baffled at Hanneman's, you know, just consternation at Dark Angel's heaviness. And at the end of that tour, I ended up hearing the new Dark Angel stuff that he was talking about, and I was like, holy fuck, you're not kidding. You know, these guys are killing it. These guys are crushing it. And so I think I approached Jim Durkin and said, hey, I want to be in your band.
Yeah.
And so
Well, they were having drum problems at the time?
Yeah, their drummer was just a little, you know, I just don't think he was working out. You
Right.
know, I think they wanted to kind of be a little more extreme, and he was just a little laid back as a thrash metal drummer. And he's the same guy that performed on their first record, We Have Arrived. And there is a polar difference between We Have Arrived and then my first record, Darkness Descends. I mean, the heaviness, the psychosis just upped itself massively. And that was, for when I joined the band, Jim said, finally, I've got a like-minded cohort here. You know, I want to be faster and heavier, and now you do, Gene. So, you know, we've got two like minds in the band. Everybody else was just kind of scattered on what they wanted the direction to be. So,
What gets you into drums early on? Are you like early on just AC/DC, Ted Nugent, that kind of stuff? How old are you? I'm 52.
I'm 51.
51, so we grew up on the same music.
Absolutely.
What gets you into drums to start with, and not guitar or singing or anything
Sure.
early on?
That would have been Peter Criss.
Peter
Absolutely.
Criss, Kiss, there it
just
is.
Like everybody my age and a little bit older,
that's what I
their
say.
first go-to guy.
Cedric Bixler always says Kiss is the gateway drug to music, and it
Absolutely.
is for anybody our age,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
anybody right above us,
Yeah.
it's Bonzo.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
Zeppelin.
Yeah, big time. Totally.
So you see Kiss, do you see Kiss, or are you just hearing them and you buy the records,
Hearing
Kiss
them.
Alive 1 or 2?
Buy the records, yeah, all that. My first record from Kiss was Destroyer in '76.
Yeah.
And you know, my older cousin turned me onto them, and after that, for me, was guys, you know, like Neil Peart, definitely.
Right.
You know, he was my air drum kit dwarfed Neil Peart's real kit. You know, mine was huge. You know? And so, you know, Peter Criss gave me the excitement to do it, and the idea of, this is what I want to do. And then Neil Peart, Tommy Aldridge, Terry Bozzio, Cozy Powell,
Yeah.
all those guys started, you know, I just started paying attention to them in terms of licks and
Clyde
stuff.
Burr.
Clive was killer. He was very solid,
Right.
You know. But I was a huge Maiden fan before. You know, I'm the only person that I knew who was into Maiden. You know, first album, all that sort of stuff, and you know. Nobody was into Maiden. Nobody was into heavy stuff at the time. So Maiden, and even Judas Priest, the only Judas Priest anybody knew was like, you know, Living After Midnight, or you know, You Got Another Thing Coming later on, or whatever.
Fuck all that,
And,
dude.
yeah,
To me, it's just, you know, I mean, Exciter.
Yeah.
Stand Back from Exciter.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, the live record
Absolutely.
is one of the best masterpieces ever made. And
Big
when you
time.
put that on, and by the time they get to Sinner, you can't even believe what's coming out of your speakers,
Absolutely.
man. With KK, with the tremor,
man.
you know, and they get into Sinner and Green Manalishi and Diamonds and Rust.
Yeah,
I mean,
man.
Priest really was better than anybody at the time.
Absolutely.
At the time, you know. And then, of course, you know, Cozy Powell, I remember he was playing with Shanker. You know.
Sure.
And that guy was another god. These are guys that people don't really talk about. You know, Clive, of course, passed away. But, you know, Tommy Aldridge, Cozy Powell, those were all, you know, drummers that were just drum gods,
Absolutely.
you know.
Yeah.
And so you're into Peter Criss. Do you get a drum kit right away?
No, I didn't get a kit till I was 76. That would have put me at about 8 when I purchased, when I got Destroyer. So from age 8 through 13, I was an air drummer only. You know,
Right.
I try to play on some other people's kits every
And
once
you
in a
didn't
while
want
when
to
I could.
sing or guitar or nothing?
No.
It was Peter Criss.
Yeah, man, it was all drums for me. Right before I joined Dark Angel, I picked up the guitar, and then I became a series writer for Dark Angel, and I've been playing guitar for 35 years now. I've been playing drums for 38 years or something like that. So it's, you know, Kiss, definite gateway. And, you know, just, you know, Rush was a huge influence. You know, Neil Peart, he was the best drummer ever at the time, which to an 11-year-old, a 12-year-old, he is. You know, I hadn't discovered guys like Terry Bozzio or Mark Craney from the Gino Vanelli Brother to Brother record. Just all guys like that were, you know, they had the chops and they had some double bass. All these guys have some double bass going for them, and it then became all speed for me. Like, just give me the fastest stuff, the heaviest stuff, and I don't want to hear Living After Midnight. I want to hear Steeler.
Boom,
you know, I want to hear Rapid Fire. And that was my action. And so Fast as a Shark, when that came out, it just blew doors off everything. And
that really was it.
Absolutely.
It really was it. If you look at the double bass blueprint, it's kind of Fast as a Shark. Priest ups their game with the freewheel burning, you know. And then, of course, the infamous footage of One with Lars's feet in that double bass part.
Sure.
You know, darkness imprisoning me.
I'll flat out tell you, that comes from a Dark Angel song.
Oh, yeah?
That comes from Darkness Descends. And it's well known in the scene that, you know, as soon as they put out One, I got so many phone calls going, you know, those guys are ripping you off. And I joked, like, we had their sound man, Big Mick. He's been.
I know Big Mick.
You know Big Mick. And at the time, we had him on a tour, and Metallica was up for the Grammy at the time, but it hadn't been announced or anything yet. And I was joking that if they win the Grammy, I'm gonna sue. Totally joking it.
Yeah.
And Mick was like, "You should. They'll probably give you $100,000 to shut you up."
Wow.
And I was like, well, I'm not going to become the pariah of the metal scene by suing Metallica. Everybody's stolen Metallica riffs. So
so you mean the actual drum part or the musical part too?
the whole everything. Yeah, the drum part definitely.
Yeah.
And that's why I just thought it was kind of funny with that the first line in the whole thing is darkness.
Yeah.
Because it comes right from Darkness Descends, opening track on the second record. So
wow.
if you were to hear it, you'd catch it. You'd be
I'm
like,
going
"Oh,
to check
holy shit,
that when
man."
we're done here,
Totally.
because that's one of my favorite Metallica records of all time.
Yeah, man.
And
That's
Justice
a great
for
one. That is.
Did you ever talk to Lars about it?
No, but you know, we've toured together and stuff, and you know, God, I remember him. I play with leg weights on, and I remember him walking out while I'm just kind of I think we were doing a show together in Australia or somewhere. It was one where when the lights go down, it's, they play in the round. So
Yeah.
you have to run. Lights go down, your intro goes on. You have to run like a motherfucker to get to that stage. And this was when I was in Fear Factory.
Yeah.
And there were no small boys in Fear Factory. So, I mean,
No,
we're creating
Dino.
some thunder as we're running down the thing. And right before I had to take off running in my leg weights, Lars walks up. He's just looking at my legs and looking at me like I am from Mars. And he's
Yeah.
like, what the fuck is that? I'm like, leg weights. And he's, what the fuck do you
Leg
do?
weights?
Yeah, I play with leg weights on.
You do?
Yeah.
Why is that?
I'm a badass. But no, it's kind of the same concept as like the batter's donut.
I know that, but do you run up with the leg weights and then take them off? So then you got it's like the same thing. So now your legs are lightweight.
What I'll do normally is it depends on how the set list with whichever band I'm playing with. It depends how the set list is organized. If it's something where you got a bunch of relatively simple songs until that cooking song,
Yeah.
I'll wear them for the first 8 songs of the set and then pop them off before the hauling song.
Wow.
And, like on this last tour, the one we just finished, Testament, just finished with Slayer. We're doing 35 minutes, not a lot of heavy, crazy double bass in our set, so
Yeah.
I just wear them for the whole show, and I play in boots as well.
Yeah,
So-
wow. And in boots.
Yeah,
You're all ergonomically all wrong.
yeah,
Boots,
yeah.
leg weights, yeah.
Everybody tells me, it's like, fuck, you do all this crazy horse shit, and with leg weights,
Yeah.
and with boots on, you fucker, so
So you joined Dark Angel,
yeah.
and you get out there on the road,
That's right.
and now you're in a real band, and you're getting an eye opener.
Yeah.
And who are you guys out touring with early on and stuff?
Well, we've toured with Motorhead and the Cro-Mags. That was our first tour.
Cro-Mags.
Yeah, man.
Man, Age of
That
Quarrel.
was on that record.
I saw the Age of Quarrel tour. I think it's one of the
Awesome.
greatest tours I've ever seen, and one of the greatest records of all time.
Absolutely, that's a classic. And I'm a complete fan of Age of Quarrel and Best Wishes.
Yeah.
But for me, Alpha Omega record, which was that was their Pariah record. That was one of the greatest riff-tastic metal records ever. If you haven't heard it,
Yeah.
check it out, man. It's incredible. Alpha
That's
Omega.
2 after Age of
It
Quarrel,
is,
right?
yeah.
And I've never even heard that one.
Okay, yeah, it's amazing. Harley took over on vocals, and his voice is amazing.
Wow.
Like, he's got one of the most soulful. He just bleeds the vocals, and he's got so much soul to his voice. His voice is kind of a cross between like Gene Simmons and the Kool-Aid guy.
Right? Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
got a big throaty
Wow,
voice.
because John Joseph is just such, to me, as the Age of Quarrel.
Absolutely,
I mean,
yeah.
that is that. To me, that's the blueprint vocal of hardcore.
Sure.
If you listen to any hardcore band, it seems like they're trying to do that.
Yeah, I
You
can see
know.
that. Yeah, totally.
You know.
Him and Roger Murray, of course, from
Yeah.
Agnostic. Those guys just, laid down the template really early. And we were fortunate to be on the road with Cro-Mags at the time. And they were super cool. They were in their Hare Krishna phase at the
Yeah,
time.
totally.
And they were like vegan vegetarians, so we'd
Yep.
always get their deli tray. And that was, that was helpful.
Yeah.
You don't eat a lot.
Yeah.
back then. But that was great. Had some shows with Megadeth, did a few shows with Slayer, and bands like Nuclear Assault, and who else? Overkill.
But Dark Angel never really seems to take off, right?
Not
I mean,
really.
to me, because I was engulfed in that scene. I was, way deep in it. San
Yeah, sure.
Francisco,
Yeah,
Bay
absolutely.
Area kid.
Yeah, we played there all the time.
And to me, yeah, of course. But to me, it was always, Anthrax, Slayer, Testament, Possessed, Metallica.
You got your Death Angels.
Mordred.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, Death Angel,
Yeah,
of
man.
course, all
Forbidden.
that stuff.
Yeah.
Death Angel was just,
Ball-crushing.
unbelievable.
Absolutely.
But all those bands, and then it seemed like the other bands didn't really ever seem to climb somehow. And I don't know if it was just because of the small indie labels back then that were signing these bands didn't know how to get them to the next level.
Well, one thing I found, and that is true to a degree. We were with Combat, which was as big an independent label.
Big label.
As
I
could
mean,
be
that
at
was
time.
the Bonded by Blood, Combat /
Torrid.
Yeah.
Yeah, all that stuff. And one thing one thing that plagued Dark Angel is we had a lot of personnel changes at inopportune times.
Right.
That would take, wow, we just lost our vocalist. It took us 10 months to find a new vocalist, and that just eats your, people's, even back then, the MTV generation hadn't quite kicked in for the harder edge of metal yet, but when you're losing valuable time, people, if their favorite band, their new favorite band is not putting out stuff, they're going to go out and find a new favorite band.
That's what happens.
And that's what happened to us. And one thing is, we never slowed down. Like, we never, we didn't put out any kind of songs that could be even video capable.
Well, if you look at Slayer, you've got, by the time they really get to
Seasons in the Abyss album was
Season in
when
the
they started
Abyss
doing
record
videos, and their
is
first
when
was
they
War
get
on
into
Song.
that video, and it's kind of like, it's more of a galloping groove of
Sure.
like dun digga dun digga dun, and they
Yeah.
do the video at the pyramids and
Yeah.
everything. It's a little more accessible than Die
Absolutely.
by the Sword,
Yeah,
for
sure.
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 So you could see what was going on, and even South of Heaven, it was
Big
kind
time.
it was kind of hooky.
Yeah,
You know
oh,
what I
yeah,
mean?
that's-
So.
For me, that's, I
And
gotta
Metallica, when they get into,
know all the ballads.
all the ballads, of One and stuff like that.
And
I-
even,
of course, the Black Album. I mean, that's a whole different
Yeah,
thing. But
sure.
I'm saying,
Even Fade to
Sanitarium.
Black. Yeah, sure.
That's like a ballad, Fade to
Absolutely.
Black, totally.
That threw a lot of people for a loop, because
Yeah.
they're used to hearing Kill 'Em All.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
they thought the next album was just going to be a fucking even more intense version of Kill 'Em All. It's like, well, wait, what's happening? You got songs like Escape.
Yeah.
And
That's
Fade
the
to
only,
Black.
Hetfield hates that one.
I don't blame him.
That song.
Why'd you
yeah.
write it?
Yeah, well, I think that the thing with Kill 'Em All is the least favorite of mine out of, if we're going to name those.
Fair enough.
It's funny
Sure.
because I just didn't think it was, by the time they get to Ride the Lightning, it's like, it sounds like themselves. Like,
Absolutely.
holy shit, nobody's doing something like this,
Yeah, big time. Totally.
And then when they get to Masters, it's a whole different thing.
Sure.
So, I could see where bands early on were just kind of grabbing that new wave British heavy metal thing
Mm-hmm.
and then kind of molding and stuff. And then the good ones became themselves.
Yeah.
And then the other ones just kind of fizzled out.
Well, you made a good point with, a band finding their sound, like Slayer with Show No Mercy.
Yeah.
Because they, the Metallica influence is very apparent. You hear Metallica riffs on Show No Mercy. Like the song Show No Mercy, that just sounds like Motor Breath.
Right.
Riff-wise, I'm a big riff policer. I'll find where you got that riff from and all that sort of
Yeah,
stuff.
that's so funny. Me and my buddies used to be riff police.
Yeah, man.
Me and my buddies in San Fran. Here
Yeah.
comes the riff police.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where I got the term from, Bay Area fully. So, but that's a band, finding its sound. There's Maiden influences on Show No Mercy that aren't present later on.
Right.
Songs like Cryonics and stuff. And I've told this story many times, but I made my vinyl debut on Show No Mercy. That was the first album I ever appeared on.
Wow. You played on that?
Well, I sang on it.
Oh, you sang on it?
Yeah, on the opening track, "Evil Has No Boundaries."
Yeah.
And that's the one that goes evil.
Yeah.
And it used to be, I remember how it went down in the studio. I was in the studio just watching them record the record, and it was Tom and Carrie sitting there, and they were about to go do the backing vocals for Evil, and live it was always Jeff and Carrie just kind of going, "Evil, my words defy evil." It just wasn't that heavy,
Right.
And I just said to Tom and Carrie, I was like, "Hey man, you guys ever thought about like getting a big gang of dudes in there and just going evil?" And they looked at each other like, "Great idea. No time like the present. Everybody get in there." And there was about 8 dudes hanging around the
Wow.
studio, And Johnny Araya was recently telling me, he's like, yeah, because he was a part of it too. He's like, remember they only had one set of headphones for 8 guys. They only had one. It was cheap ass.
Hilarious, yeah.
So Johnny had to hold the headphones. You turn the cans outwards,
right?
And he's holding the headphones while we can kind of hear the little AM radio coming out of the headphones and yelling evil. And I came out of the booth and I was like, I sang Devo. And Animat's going, I sang Weebles. Oh. And I swear to God, if you listen real carefully, you can hear a guy going Devo, and you hear another guy going Weebles.
Wow.
So that's pretty fun. And like for it's another well-known story, but for Chemical Warfare, for the Haunting the Chapel EP, I was there for that as well. And Dave started, he started in on Chemical Warfare, and after about a minute of playing it, he cut the take or whatever, and you can hear him saying, hey, can somebody come out here and hold my drum set together? Because there was no drum carpet like you do in studios. There was just a concrete floor.
Wow.
And that was it. Nobody had a drum carpet at this studio.
The drums are just sliding.
Yeah, just sliding along. They're called walking. The kick drums are walking, and especially his right one. And he's like, can somebody come out and hold my right kick? Because it's walking. 6 heads turn and look at me, and they're like, you're the drummer, dude. This is your job. And so I went out there. I'm on the ground. I'm got my arm around mic stands and cymbal stands, and I'm holding his drums together. And at the time, he had this he had a kit that had concert toms, meaning there's no bottom head.
Oh yeah, yeah. So you're just getting blasted.
And he had purple, clear. They were clear purple Evans hydraulic heads, so you could see through. I could see him playing. So for me, that tom in Chemical Warfare was the tom right above my head, the way I'm holding it, and I'm watching the stick hitting the whole, and that's to this day. Every time I hear Chemical Warfare, that's the vision I get in my head of that tom just pounding away right above my head, and I remember. After about 20 or 30 seconds, I was just thinking, oh my God, I hope Dave has this in like 1 or 2 takes, because if we're here for 8 or 10 takes of this, I'm gonna die.
Oh my God!
He nailed it in 1. Then they did a safety take afterwards. He nailed both. So I was like, oh God, thank God. So that was pretty cool.
When you see Dave, since you're around that, and you and Dave are friends at the time. You start to see, do you see his playing develop into an extremely amazing groove metal drummer? Because that's why Slayer is so good with Dave, is because he has a swing and groove to his playing. Were you picking up on that also, or were you going for more of a technical, rigid thing of like da-da-da-da-da-da, because his has a swing and a flow, Well,
I got to admit, when, and remember, I'm 15, 16 at the time. At that time, I didn't see the groove and the swing. Like, I see it in his playing now,
right.
Huge time. But back then, I and forgive me, Dave, for saying this, I felt Dave was a really stiff player at that time.
Right.
And at that time, we were always hearing that Jeff and Kerry were telling him what to play. And, maybe he was rebelling against that, or like, you want me to play it like that? I'll play it just like really stiff and just,
yeah.
And, he had the kind of the Mitch Mitchell kind of style, the Keith Moon sort of style, a lot of single strokes, just going flurries of pretty simplistic playing. It just depends on where you throw it at. And that's where, I was always hoping that he would loosen up. And after he came back, that's when I felt Dave was really loose. I didn't find that until he went out and did all the other stuff like Grip Inc. and all the Mike Patton projects that he worked with.
Phantomos and all that.
All that stuff, the Godfathers projects and all that. That's where I felt he really developed a swing. And when I saw him, I watched a YouTube of him doing Angel of Death from that Yankee Stadium Big Four show. And, camera's right behind him, and he is grooving and swinging all that middle part from Angel of Death just in a amazing way. And that's where I felt like, wow, Dave has really got the swing together. And so, that's what I felt when I was a kid. And
Right.
that's where I was more into a technical aspect of playing, and instead of doing the just flurries of single stroke notes, I was really trying to incorporate fills that had a lot of up top on the hands and a lot of double bass, a lot of bass filling in spots, like I called them fragmented quadruplets. A quadruplet is where you're going all over your kit. That's a quadruplet. And so I would try to fragment that instead of just going, it's a quad is two up, hand, foot, hand, foot. That's a quad. 1, 2, 3, 4. I would be like 4 up top, 2 down, 4 up top, 4 down, 2 up top, 4 down, just trying to mix it up rather than, and which. And
where are you picking that kind of stuff up from? Like
guys like Steve Smith, Journey, he's a master.
Yeah.
That, like, for instance, the beginning of the song "Where Were You" by Journey.
Yeah,
that's an example, and that's a single bass thing. But that's kind of my whole approach. Tommy Aldridge, definitely. Vinny Appice in certain like stand up and shout kind of things.
Yeah.
He had a lot of that kind of flow going to where he's filling up every single note, but it's not in a very regimented pattern. It's kind of fragmented sounding.
Right.
So that's why I would just call them fragmented quads. I'm sure there's a technical term for it that I don't pay attention to, but that was kind of where I wanted my style to kind of go towards, is having a Tommy Aldridge as an influence, as opposed to, like, say, a Mitch Mitchell, who's a great drummer, but that for me was pretty simplistic. So
you were listening to other drummers outside of the metal world
always,
but then applying the stuff into somehow a metal form.
Absolutely.
Because if you look at all these great drummers, Steve Smith, if you talk to people in the metal world, no way are they probably going to think you're going to drop that name. And it's amazing because I just watched Steve play 2 months ago at the Garden with Journey, and he is still such a vital sound of that band, and very interesting player too.
Totally.
He's playing stuff that you're not going to think is not the obvious at all.
Yeah, like, God,
and those early Journey records are weird too, when they're the instrumental and they have, what's his name on drums?
Ainsley
Dunbar. When they're instrumental, which I think is some of the greatest Journey ever, man.
Absolutely.
That shit is psychedelic and proggy.
Absolutely. Like songs like Cahutek on the first record, just ball-crushing drums on that. Just heavy. Like, I'll play Cahutek and Topaz off the first record for people and just, guess this band.
Yeah.
The last band they're ever going to think of is Journey.
That stuff is, so to think about Journey, how they've had 2 incredible drummers,
totally.
And then even later they had Dean Castronova, who was another monster drummer. So
huge influence on me. Totally.
Oh, Dean, really?
Big time.
Wow.
Huge
How did
time.
you discover him? Just from the Journey era?
Well, I first saw him.
Bad English?
No, it was from the Shrapnel band.
Oh yeah, gotcha.
Wild
of course.
Dogs.
Yeah.
And
Wild Dogs.
Wild Dogs opened one of the Slayer shows in '84, and we were hearing about this. I was hearing about this shit hot drummer that they had, and he was killer then, and in '87, Wild Dogs had kind of revamped their sound. They had gotten rid of the vocalist that they had, and
they went rock.
They went pretty speed metal.
From rock to speed metal. Because the early stuff was like kind of rock metal.
A little bit.
That one with the dogs on the cover. The guys holding the dogs or whatever. That's the one I remember.
And they had one after that. I think it was 2 albums after that. Reign of Terror. You'd probably YouTube it. I don't think you could find it on iTunes or Spotify or anything like that. But that is the apex of metal drumming. Is on that record.
No shit.
Absolutely. His playing is so tight, so tasty, double bass filled, and he's such an amazing drummer. And later.
And what era is that? 87.
87.
Wow. So what do we got? We got. So that's after Accept.
Yeah.
So he's obviously taken that on early on.
Yeah.
Because I don't really. talk to Dean until I meet him later in Bad English era,
sure.
you know? So I didn't even know that he was the drummer in Wild Dogs at all.
No, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, he was crushing. Yeah, YouTube that record, man. It's killer. It's no songs are quite as speedy and vicious as Fast as a Shark, but there's a ton of solid, beautiful double bass drumming on there, as well as, you know, tasty handwork, and that was really what excited me about Dean was his hands. You know, it's
Right.
such tasty. You know, you could tell that whatever he's playing right now, he could do a million times more than he's doing, but what he's doing right here is perfect and awesome and super tasty and technical. But so yeah, he was a huge fan. I mean, I'm sorry, I was a huge fan of his. So
That's amazing, man.
Yeah.
That I mean, really too. If you look at it, man, we grew up in some of the greatest drummers ever.
yeah, absolutely.
It's crazy to
Yeah.
think how great these dudes were, even down to Phil Rudd, who is an absolute god.
Total.
An absolute god. And you going back to saying that you don't think that that Dave didn't really start swinging until he came back in the band, that goes into the way I look at early on not understanding swing and groove when you're young
Sure.
until the band replaces a drummer.
Sure.
And that's when I realized that Dave's playing was special, because anyone these bands are going to get are technically capable because the bands are huge.
Yeah,
They're
sure.
auditioning dudes. They know who
Absolutely.
they are. But let's say, you know, the people that started to come in after Dave, it just felt different. It's like Matt Sorum dropping in the chair for
Yeah,
GNR
sure.
and going to play Welcome to the Jungle. Now the swing is totally, the feel's different.
Absolutely.
Same with Phil Rudd.
Yeah,
you
sure.
get Simon Wright in there, you're like, what's going on? And even
Chris Slade.
Chris Slade plays this stuff
Like he's on cocaine.
like I love Chris Slade and The Firm
Yeah, sure.
and stuff, but in AC/DC,
I agree.
I'm like, what's going on with this
Absolutely.
feel right
Yeah,
here?
man, totally. He's just pushing everything.
Yeah.
He's just on a million Red Bulls. you
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
Not the AC/DC approach there, bro.
Right, yeah.
Totally.
Now, how much did John Bonham play a role in you? Because you haven't really mentioned him, and to me, is one of the greatest drummers of all time.
He absolutely is. And I didn't really discover, really get into his playing until, I was in my 20s.
Yeah, don't you feel, and I say this a lot of times, you and I looked at Zeppelin at our age as like, man, that's our older brothers.
Yeah.
I didn't have an older brother, but
Yeah, sure.
that's those guys. They're into Zeppelin and Pink Floyd,
Yeah,
and I'm into Kiss and Sammy Hagar and,
Yeah, sure.
and Maiden. It's that you start learning other stuff.
Yeah,
and,
man.
And later you're like, oh my God, man, this is the shit.
You're right, because like for me, I was such a just rock fan when I was 9 and 10, and I was up on all the American classic rock. That's
All of it.
I was deeply entrenched in all the Ted Nugent, Black Sabbath, Cheap Trick, Queen, Angel.
Thin Lizzy.
Thin Lizzy. Full.
Yeah,
That was the first band I ever saw. Was Queen and Thin Lizzy. And that was in March of '77.
That was the first concert you went to?
My first concert. Yeah,
Holy shit, where was that at? San Diego?
I wasn't living in San Diego. I was living in Long Beach at the time, but San Diego was the only show that we could get into.
Whoa.
So yeah, my first live concert was Queen, Thin Lizzy. Thin Lizzy was on their I'm pretty sure it was the Jailbreak.
What Queen
album.
record?
That was Day at the Races.
Wow.
So, first song I ever saw live in concert was Jailbreak from
No
Thin
shit,
Lizzy.
they opened with that.
Opened with it, and they had the smoke and the sirens, and that
Yeah.
was just the greatest thing ever when I was 9. I was so
Holy
amazing.
shit. Who took you there? Your parents?
And my sister and my folks, but
Yeah.
it was my sister was a big Queen
Was
fan.
it at like the sports arena?
Yeah.
Wow, that's an
right there.
iconic room down there.
Yeah, it is. We got to play that.
They
on
got the
this tour.
photos down in there.
Yeah.
Now when you walk around it in the
Yeah.
circle, you can see all the classic photos of who
Absolutely.
played in there.
Yeah, totally.
I saw Tool there a couple years ago.
Oh, nice.
And it was just great to be in that room
I
again.
bet, yeah.
Wow.
When I was young, when I was in 4th grade, I started going to high school. They put me in the high school. And
What, fourth grade?
when I was in fourth grade.
Wait, you were going to high school?
I was going to high school in fourth
What are you
grade.
talking about? You're like one of those crazy brains?
I was in the gifted, gifted programs all over the place.
Are
And-
you kidding me?
No, that's and
So what are you excelling in? Everything in school at the time? Like you're just like a kind of a crazy IQ? What's your IQ?
at that time it was 170, and I'm sure it's nowhere near that anymore. But my sister was always pissed at me because I'm 170 and she was 159.
Yeah.
And so she's like, "You're a fucking idiot,
Wow.
but you're 170." And
Wait, so you go from fourth grade to high school?
high school.
What grade? Like ninth?
No, 12th. Yeah, I was in like 12th grade classes and things like that. But the exciting thing for me was that fucking finally there's people I could talk music with. Because when you're in fourth grade, nobody knows music,
So you're like in high school in the 12th grade, but you're in the fourth grade.
I'm 9.
Age 9.
Yeah.
And you're like, it's like, oh man, I'm loving the new Boston record.
Yeah, shit like that, and that was driving me crazy because everybody was into Boston and Foreigner at that time.
Yeah.
And neither band quite was grasping me. I wasn't catching either band at that time. But yeah, I just remember that was the hip thing with the kids then.
So how did that work? You go to 12th grade and then you're out of school?
No, it was just like a, I guess they're called pilot programs or
Oh,
something.
yeah.
It was a program they were attempting. So for that year I did that. Then after
Then you're back in
the
fifth
funding,
grade?
Then I'm back in fifth grade. Yeah,
Whoa.
but I'm in a new school for fifth grade with a gifted program. So my fifth grade teacher was amazing because what they did with our actual desks was they made cubicles out of them. They put the little partitions.
Yeah.
And you had your own little private
Stayed
spot.
focused in your own world.
And they let you design your little partition with whatever you want. And every girl in there is putting up pictures of horses and
Yeah,
Barbies
yeah.
and stuff. And I'm putting up pictures of Kiss and Angel and, Queen and all that stuff. My little partition is fully rocked out.
Do you see Kiss on the 77 tour?
No, I didn't catch him on that one.
When did you see him? Dynasty, 79?
No, I never saw him until '96.
Holy shit.
Never caught him. Yeah, my sister saw him a few times, but it was like when they came to town, I was like out of town at,
So
staying with
what
an
was
uncle
your
or
next
something.
concert after Queen?
Oh man, I went to everything. I saw Rush and Pat Travers,
Wow.
and one of the greatest concerts to this day, May 6th, 1978, was Angel. At the
Angel.
Long Beach Arena, and that was ball crushing. That was so amazing. They recorded their Live Without a Net album at this show, but that just didn't do the show justice because all the visuals that were happening, they were magically appearing on stage.
Oh, yeah. Did Doug Henning do that for them or
I
something?
don't know. I would imagine,
Right.
David Copperfield, Doug Henning, somebody
Yeah.
put something together for him because it was awesome. And the big A that was their logo, the A with an angel sign that's talking in the background, announcing each band member coming out on stage. It was just, when you're 10, that was just such an amazing,
Wow.
mind-blowing experience.
There really is just a group of people that are angel people and nobody else
Yeah,
cares.
yeah.
Isn't that a trip?
Yeah.
It really is. The bass player in my band, he just worshipped Angel.
Awesome.
And he worshipped Talus, Billy Sheehan's
yeah,
first
sure.
band. So he was always like Angel and Talus, dude. And I'd be like, both those bands are terrible. You know?
Yeah.
But now when you think about it, you're like, thank God there's dudes that were nerds on some weird small pocket bands because they bring something to the sound of your band.
I can see
you know?
that. Yeah, totally.
If everybody's just fucking straight Maiden, then
Yeah,
you're going to
sure.
have a Steve Harris guy there.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
Angel, wow.
Yeah, I mean, their second album, Hell of a Band, that's way more influenced by, like, say, a Deep Purple than, like, Sweet or
Right.
somebody.
Right.
They weren't very poppy on that album. They started going pop a little bit on classic rock pop on the next album, On Earth as It Is in Heaven. But both albums are incredible, and I suggest anybody check them out.
Yeah.
There's some.
I might
slam.
dive into it and really just see what it was about.
Check those two records.
You know,
out.
I
Start
think
with
one
those
of the
two.
guys played like the Whiskey last year or something.
Yeah, Punky Meadows.
Yeah, Punky Meadows. Yeah, because the sound man here, Danny, he's a third Angel fan
Oh,
out of
nice.
the 9 that I know.
Yeah, man.
You know,
Yeah,
and
both.
he was like, "Oh, dude, Punky Meadows, dude.
Yeah.
I got his autograph. I got to do." You know, he's so into it. You know,
It's great, man. I caught that show in San Diego. Played a tiny place called Brick by Brick.
Yeah.
And it was amazing seeing Punky Meadows. I don't know if he's had extensive plastic surgery or whatever, but he now looks exactly like Cornelius from Planet of the Apes.
Really?
Like, he got the bob haircut. And his face is just
it's all
looks like
chiseled
plastic
and
yeah,
wow.
it's crazy looking.
Cornelia.
Yeah, man. Somebody should do a meme. But it was great. It was awesome. His band kicked ass at the Angel material.
So you dive into Dark Angel. You're out there. You're losing band members and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Are you tapping into that meth world that's going on out there? Everybody's getting into meth. It's a heavy drug scene in the 80s.
It was, and my band was not averse to that. Certain members, and they were proud of it.
Yeah.
We were known as the LA Caffeine Machine, and because that was like I never got into it, but I would eat, since caffeine wasn't a drug,
right?
I would eat caffeine pills as I'm going on stage, and we were flying back in those days, like faster than just everybody. And I'm on my caffeine, and the rest of the band is, certain members of the band are doing their thing, and it never wiped us out. We never had problems with it. We never had to have any kind of interventions or anything. It was just, I think members of Dark Angel did that sort of approach, that kind of drug approach, in order to drink.
Right, of
longer.
course. That's why we all did
Okay,
it.
yeah,
that's all we did.
Yeah, all right,
I always tell people you wouldn't fuck around with meth sober.
Yeah,
those are tweakers.
Okay, yeah, sure.
It's a whole different thing. You're
Yeah.
like, what a bunch of tweakers.
Yeah.
Gross. So
Yeah.
I never looked at us as tweakers. It was like, how can we keep this rolling?
Yeah, I think
and
that was
keep
it.
playing music and drink cases of beer.
Yeah.
If we didn't do the fucking meth, we would have saved money because we would have just passed out
Yeah,
and
I
not
got
gone
it.
to the liquor store for the 9th time.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so I mean, it was never a problem, never an issue. It didn't really even raise its head, even though had guys in my band that were doing it. And I was pretty anti-drug, anti-drinking at that time, but I didn't. That was just for me,
Yeah.
I'm cool. Like I used Dark Angel as my learning period. It's like I want to be in this industry. I want to, so I was just young, focused guy. I was in high school when I joined Dark Angel. I had already spent so much time in the clubs on the Strip here, seeing and hanging out with all the earlier bands that became all the radio bands, all the Motley Crues and Great Whites and Rats and Dawkins and all that stuff. I grew up with those people. I'd come out from my bedroom in the morning, and there would be some member of Great White or Dawkins or Rat or somebody on our couch, because my sister would take in the homeless.
Yeah.
I don't have a place to stay. My
Were you
girlfriend
living
kicked
in
me out.
L.A.?
Yeah, I was living in Long Beach.
Long Beach,
and,
right.
And so, she'd drive him home and put him on the couch, feed him a bowl of soup, and give him a place to crash for the night. And, there was somebody hanging around,
Yeah.
So, and we'd go to all the parties after the shows, and I would go directly to school. I was in high school by that time, and I'd be going directly to school from those parties, from, seeing Motley Crue at the Troubadour or something, going into their, they'd invite everybody back to their parties, and we'd go out there and go to the parties. Like I said, I wasn't a partier. My folks knew this, and so they're like, God, he's doing okay in school.
Yeah.
He's not fucking up, so
Yeah.
big deal,
Well, it was also a rush to be hanging out with people that are a couple years older that were in bands. Because when I was really young, one of my, what I would call metal schoolings, you get to carry the guy's amps or whatever, and you
Yeah.
start to hang out with these bands, was Vicious Rumors.
Oh, yeah, sure. Fuck.
Very, very, very early on,
Awesome. Yeah, man.
And at one
like
point,
83?
I even sang a couple songs with them. And then thinking I was going to join, like they went through a lot of singers and
Yeah,
stuff.
they did, yeah.
But and then Jim Casero split off, started Scanners, and then I started hanging out with him, and that's how I was backstage at Motley, on the
sure.
fucking on the first tour, the first record, and
Yeah,
all that.
man.
So those are really like you learn so much from those.
Absolutely.
Everything you learn about sound checks, you learn about how the guys hang, and they're like the brotherhood,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
and being a team, and those parties all night. Fascinating.
It absolutely was, and one thing that I took in as well when I was 13, 14, whatever, was seeing what sort of effects at 3 or 4 in the morning, when guys have been did their rock show, now they're partying. You kind of see the guys that keep it together, the guys that don't, and sometimes the guys that don't. They're the first guys to get the boot out of the band,
Right?
When to start achieving higher levels.
And right away, they're like, they booted me for no reason. And you're like 14, like, actually, I saw the reasons.
I saw a lot of reasons.
Last year, you were going to be gone for sure.
Yeah, totally. And so I just took all that in and just, learned how to comport oneself, And so I took all my Dark Angel time as being young, focused guy. I'm going to learn as much about the industry as I can. And so that's why, like partying, it wasn't a part of it for me, while maybe some of my other band members are out there after the show, let's go on a cruise for coos. I'm in the back of the bus, with the guitar in my hand, writing the next album.
Right.
I took over a lot of the writing chores. Now,
So you were writing a lot of that stuff, huh?
yeah, and I played a lot of guitar on the Dark Angel records.
Wow.
Especially in the last 2 that we did. It's me on guitar on quite a bit of it. And it was just really like I was writing riffs that were getting pretty technical, and the band was like, fuck that. You wrote it, you play it.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Okay.
So Dark Angel runs its course.
Yeah.
And where do you end up after that? Because now here you are. You're like, what do you think? Around 20 or so?
I was 25.
25, and you've run the course, and you've got to kind of start realizing, although you were writing the tunes, you were smart. Most drummers, all of a sudden they wake up and they're like, whoa, I'm just a drummer. I didn't write anything. I need a band now, or else I don't play.
Yeah, sure.
So there you are. At least you wrote tunes and stuff. You're 25, and are you just kind of like, now what? Because the musical landscape has changed.
Yeah, absolutely. It was changing big time.
Big time. And the business is big at that time as far as money and everything. So where are you at there?
Well, that's when I got, you're familiar with Blabbermouth, of course.
Of course.
The guy who runs that, Borovoy Kurgan. We've all known Borovoy since, back in the early tape trading days sort of thing. And I'd reached out to Borovoy saying, hey, I'm heading on from Dark Angel. I'm looking for a vocalist. I'm putting a new project together. Can you help me out with a vocalist? Send me some tapes or some guys that you think. He's like, yeah, I'll take care of that. Get a call from him a few days later saying, I just spoke with Chuck Schuldiner from Death.
Yeah.
And he's just booted his band, and he's looking for a drummer. Would you be interested? And we had toured with Death, and Chuck and I were pen pals back in the tape trading days. And we had a very ill-fated tour between Dark Angel and Death, where Death left the tour. A lot of animosity in the press between us both. I had not spoken to Chuck. This was 1992, late 92, when I got the call about it. And so it had been 1989.
This is interesting because this is when grunge is hitting full force all of a sudden.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And, for me in the thrash metal phase or whatever of my career, people ask me, did grunge kill metal? Did grunge kill thrash metal? No, it actually helped thrash metal. Death metal killed thrash metal because it's the next step.
It's the next step.
extremity,
It's more extreme.
Absolutely.
Once you get into like all that death metal and that really extreme, because it goes from like King Diamond and Merciful Fate and all that, which is kind of evil and crazy.
Yeah, sure.
And you got Slayer and all that. But then this comes out and you're going like, oh, what the fuck?
Yeah,
it's like,
absolutely.
And that's when like church burnings were going on and shit.
Yeah, that's the black metal thing.
Black
and that started
metal,
happening in
all
late
that
92
shit.
and early 93, right around the time I was I hooked up with Chuck. So, I ended up saying yes, like Borovoy put us in touch, and it was our first conversation was very cool because we hadn't spoken in 3 years, and our last words were pretty acrimonious towards each other, but it's like that was immediately water under the bridge, and we just kind of picked up, because Chuck and I had a lot of talks about metal, and we just kind of picked up the last cool conversation that we had. You know, it's just kind of, it was pretty easy going conversation. So I was like, okay, well, let's get together and let's work on this record. And I was expecting that our collaboration was going to be this just monstrous death metal, just juggernaut. And because Death had released the album Human, and I don't know if you're familiar with that record.
Right.
But it's a landmark album in terms of drumming on it, because their drummer Sean Reiner, you know, that raised the bar for drums in extreme metal big time. And when I got I refer to it as the adorable riff tape from Chuck, where he had, you know, he didn't have any kind of, like, even a 4-track machine. He had a ghetto blaster and another ghetto blaster.
Oh, that old one.
He would play into one ghetto blaster.
Yeah, and then play it.
The harmonies would be on.
Hilarious.
You know, and it was adorable, man. It was awesome. And however, the riffs were not savage death metal at all. I was like, whoa, where is Chuck's head with this? And so I thought, well, okay, you've got Human, which the drums definitely outside the box. And these kind of riffs do not sound like there's going to be like your typical savage death metal approach to the drums. So, hey, you get to think outside the box too, and you know, start bringing in your influences like Steve Gadd by this time with Al Di Meola. You know, that huge influence on the individual Thought Patterns record, and you know, bring in your Neil Peart influence and your Tommy Aldridge and all your jazz fusion that you're getting into.
So
now.
Getting in some prog metal.
Absolutely, and it was relatively prog, definitely for its time. It was, you know, that album was. It was not death metal, but the band was Death, and Death was always known as the first word in death metal. And Chuck had just been, you know, drifting away from the savagery of death metal and the whole scene of it, and you know, he was starting to get back into more like a traditional metal, you know, kind of approach. But you know, with the riffs that I was hearing, I thought, well, you've got some work ahead of you to make this a cohesive sort of approach, you know, and make it cool. And so, you know, from that came the Individual Thought Patterns record, and that was the first of 2 albums that I did with them, and the second was Symbolic, which was also pretty proggy sounding record for that. And you know, that's one thing that I will give Death a lot of credit to, by, you know, they didn't invent death metal, and Chuck never professed to be the, you know, he was called the godfather of death metal.
Of course.
And that was a really uncomfortable tag for him. He wasn't comfortable
because now he's labeled
that, and he was always trying to give credit. You know, he's like, bands like Possessed were doing this. You know, a lot of bands, even with Merciful Fate, they were, you know, having, you know, although not death metal, you could see the inspiration.
For sure, absolutely. For sure.
And so he was always trying to give credit. You know, Slayer for me was the, you know, Black Magic, Die by the Sword.
Die by the Sword. It's early death metal.
That's death metal vocals, right?
Absolutely.
That's the creation of it, right?
It's just like Die by the Sword.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, matter of fact, that was the first song I ever heard by Slayer.
Okay, yeah.
And I was always like, "Oh, singer's terrible." You know what I mean? And then later, I was like, "Singer's amazing."
Yeah,
you know, like when you're young, you just don't understand. Sometimes you're looking for where's the skill, and then you don't realize, oh, that is a skill, and that is also a style and a character, you know, which is wild.
Well, that's where the death portion of my career led, was that, you know, they whether Chuck created death metal or not, and whether Death created death metal or not, most people just thought they were the creation of death metal,
right?
And that's how they were kind of marketed by Combat at the time. Great move, but you know, okay, so give them that credit. They, you know, created death metal. Then later on, they helped create, with a couple other bands, they helped create technical death metal, and then after that, they helped create melodic death metal. So it's one thing to be in a band that's famous, a band that's playing a style that everybody else has played, and you're doing it, but you're famous at it, and you're good, and you're big. But, I'll give Chuck credit. I'll give Death credit that, they helped form 3 styles of music that are still extremely viable today.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
so good for them.
they're taking this style and then experimenting with it.
Absolutely.
Instead of just sticking to one formula, let's see where we can take this flavor. You know what I mean? Which is really rad. You now over the years, you've pretty much played with a ton of fucking people. At some point, do you just go like, "Fuck, I'm just going to be drums for hire"? To look at it as like in a business sense?
There is that aspect that you should pay attention to, as a player. I never wanted a job, so I've never had one, but it's like my job is my hands, my feet.
Yeah.
So, take care of my body so I can do this for lots of different styles, but the business aspect of it is, I branded myself as a hired gun.
Yeah.
And, I still am. But, the average person doesn't care what your business practices are. They just want to know if you're going to be on that next record by this band or that band or whatever. So, nobody knows the inner workings of how bands work, and it's not up to us to tell. But, if I'm going to appear on this band's record over the course of time, then, there's a good possibility I might be a member of that band, or I might be a hired gun that's just in a really fun place, and the band's fun, and I like the guys, and this all works out perfectly. I'm fine with being the hired gun. And if the world thinks I'm in that band, fine.
Whatever, yeah.
Yeah, man. So we're putting out good music and having a good time doing it, and the touring's great or whatever, So I've had plenty of that aspect in what I do as well. But, I'm a band guy. I like being in a band, and that's why it all comes back to, like, when I hang out with Dark Angel, because we have... we went away for a long time, and we are probably the last of those old school acts that have resurfaced with new shows, new music is coming, and those guys are like it's since I was a kid. These guys are older than me. I was a teenager. I was 17. They were badass 19-year-olds.
Yeah.
They, those guys are kind of, the band that I feel like we're all on the same equal level with, no matter how successful I've become. And, because I'm about the only guy in Dark Angel that has, maintained a solid foothold in career, and everybody has their other interests now, but this is still, we get together and it's fun because it's like a band. We are like brothers, and I appreciate that.
Well, that was your old fucking training grounds.
Absolutely. I spent the first 8 years with them. So, and like another band that super feels like a band is the Death to All project that we have, which is it's a lot of the guys from Death. Obviously Chuck is no longer with us, but we kind of felt like, why let Chuck's musical legacy disappear just because he's no longer with us? We got 3 guys, for instance, 3 core guys that I'm in a band with those guys, and it's called Death to All, and it's the Death guys, and we have a new singer, a new Chuck, as it were. And it's great. It's fun. It's a blast. We have a great time doing it, and that's what a band should be. The band should be about great times and making kick-ass music, and not, well, who gets the bigger check, or I wrote this song and you didn't write that song. Who cares about that?
Yeah. Let's get out there and play.
Yeah, just play fun music and enjoy it and have a good time, and that definitely. That shows itself to the audience when you're having a great time on stage. That's what it's all about. This is fun. It's called playing music, not working music, even though music has become work. It gets
so much tougher though when people are older. So thank God that like you're playing with bands who have tour buses and stuff.
Sure.
Because you're 51 or whatever, especially like you get out on a road for a while,
mm-hmm.
and then as you get older, it gets tougher. People have kids, they have bills.
Absolutely.
And there's different different goals, like what's the money going to be and that kind of stuff. It's got to be nice. How do you approach your business wise? Do you have a manager or is it you? And how do you approach when the bands, because you're the go-to guy, there's a few guys out there, right, that are the go-to metal guys.
Sure.
It's Dave, you, Tempesta,
Yeah,
these
absolutely.
guys that roll in. Of course, you got Josh Freeze, who's a different style,
Absolutely,
but
yeah.
there's these rad drummers that are out there working. Do you got a manager?
I do, yeah.
And do you get a lot of calls every year for stuff, for records
Absolutely.
and tours?
Absolutely.
And how busy is it?
I am already with the projects that I'm personally involved in. I'm plenty busy, but if I chose to be, it could be like an 18-month cycle of going directly from one to another to another.
Really?
I've had that. Just I think it was last year where. Let me see. We started the year off with doing some Dark Angel in Japan, then some Zimmer's Hole in Canada, then Testament did like a month and a half with Slayer, and the day that was done, I flew out to Europe and started the very next day with Death Do All. That lasted for about 4 weeks. Came home. The next day, I'm in Europe one day. Next day, I'm in the studio with Testament working on Brotherhood of the Snake. And then the day that is done, I'm in L.A. here working on the next Galacticon record with Brendan Small.
Wow.
And then the day that's done, travel back up to Canada, do some shows with Zimmer's Hole, which my wife is a part of. And that was fun, getting to do some shows. Like her first shows was Zimmer's Hole as backup guitarist,
right?
Second guitarist there, and all of that was over the course of about like 2.5, 3 months, where, I spent I think it was like 21 hours at home during that whole
wow
4-month stretch.
Are you a homeowner?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I bought this place that I never get to see.
Yeah.
No, I do get to spend plenty
You
of time
chose San Diego. What made you choose San Diego?
Well, my wife Laura, she became a member of Meldrum. And she was.
So this is how that happens.
We met through Meldrum.
Yeah.
And we went up to Vancouver to Michelle. Laura joined. Obviously Michelle was our guitarist, and Laura is a guitarist too. She had a death metal background with a band called Warface. And when Michelle said, okay, we've got a new bassist, her name's Laura, she's from this band Warface, and we started getting together to complete the writing for the next record and start working on the record. We had tracked the drums for the album, and I had to go to Australia and do a clinic tour, and it was while I was in Australia that Michelle passed away.
Yeah.
And so when I got back, I flew in. The day I flew in, I went directly to her services.
Yeah.
And, her family was there, and they were asking, like, would you be interested in maybe, finishing the record? And
yeah.
I was like, absolutely, So I had approached Laura, who, we weren't together yet, but I was like, hey, would you be able to maybe learn the songs, finish the guitaring on the record? And she was up for it. So we went to Vancouver, and then, after a certain amount of time, we got the record done, and that's when, it was all work. And, we ended up, she wasn't with her person anymore, and I'm single, so that's where we ended up being together. And that's one thing that Lara brought into my life, was like the absolute health aspect of all of this. Like I've always had a pretty aerobic approach to drums. Drums is an aerobic exercise. It's a good cardio exercise. And, she kind of taught me the correct eating that needs to.
Yeah, because you were a giant dude when I met you.
Yeah.
I mean, you were a fucking, like, how big were you, like, let's say during the Meldrum era?
That would have been, I was upper 300s.
Yeah.
And it was when I was in Fear Factory that our first tour together was in South America. And if you've ever been to South America, they have churrascarias
Yeah.
everywhere, which are the meat pits where they bring out the just nonstop meat on swords and they carve off the piece of meat. Every night was a churrascaria visit.
Yeah.
And so I came back from that tour and, Lara was like, holy Jesus, dude, I've seen you go, I was gone for 10 days and I put on like 20 pounds. I bloated up to like 410.
Well, 410.
410, yeah.
And you're a drummer playing metal.
Yeah, Fear Factory metal too.
Yeah,
which
were
is,
you getting winded at it?
No,
Wow.
no, never affected me.
Wow.
And that's, I have this economy of motion to my style, which allows me to play really fast, really hard, but I'm not doing huge.
Yeah, that's
arm
what
movements to
Lombardo
do it.
said. None of this giant arm swings like Tommy Lee stuff where you're fucking up your shoulder sockets and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and winding yourself and all that. I can get enough power out of my wrists, out of my ankles that
Were you watching those 90s what's his name, Bozio videos? Because it seemed like he was inventing this style where his hands weren't even moving, but it was lightning speed.
Yeah, sure.
It'd be like, it almost looked fake. I'd see these drum videos, my drummer would watch them, and I'd be like, that's got to be fake.
Yeah, sure. I'd never watched those things,
Wow. So you get home and she's like, what the fuck, dude? You're giant.
Yeah.
And she starts, decide to diet and stuff.
That coupled, I actually hadn't decided anything, but I had a doctor's appointment pretty immediately after I got back, and my doctor had told me, hey man, let me tell you right now, if you do not change your lifestyle, by the next time you come in, we're going to have you start jabbing insulin.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, there's no way I'm doing that.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened to me.
Yeah, sure.
So did you have pre-diabetes or did you have type 2? Did you have it?
I had type 2 for probably 15 years.
15 years?
Or so, yeah.
Oh, so what were you doing for your type 2? Were you just saying, fuck it?
No, they had me, for 10 years or so, I was on like all the Synthroids and Metformins and all that sort of just big pharma bullshit.
Yeah, right. Right.
And God, all those, obviously it's well known. Every drug you take for something comes with side effects that create other things. And my wife was a much more natural approach towards things. And so when I came home from my doctor with the visit of like, they telling me I got to make some changes, she was like, good, fuck that, fuck this. I am going to put you on a plan that is going to, just you do what I tell you to do. I've been patient for the last couple of years watching you eat cheeseburger after cheeseburger, and now it fucking stops. I'm going to put you on this plan, and within 3 to 6 months, you're going to be diabetes free, and you're going to lose a lot of weight as well. And true to her word,
Was it vegan?
No, but it was definitely, we chopped out all the red meat.
Yeah.
We're eating a little bit of fish, a little bit of chicken.
That's exactly what I did.
Yeah.
So I
remember you've lost tons.
I lost 40. So I went to the doctor, and I remember just one day I was on stage doing comedy, and all of a sudden my body just started like, I felt like I was having an extreme panic attack.
Okay, yeah.
For like 2 straight days, it wasn't going away. I go, something's wrong with me.
Yeah.
And my feet were kind of burning.
Oh, yeah.
And my eyes were like, felt like poppy, weird,
Wow, okay.
And I couldn't sleep.
Yeah.
And I went in and he's like, yeah, you're going to need to start taking these pills. They're $800 a month. And I go, well, I don't have that money.
Yeah, sure.
So what am I going to do? And diabetes, he goes, you got diabetes type 2, and so then I read this book, How to Reset Your Body in 3 months, and I changed completely, and I went vegan for a few months just to like reset the
Juice
body.
it. Yeah, just
and now I don't have diabetes.
Awesome.
And what I do is, a lot of salmon, a lot of quinoa, of some brown rice, black beans, and I really watch what I eat. It's 0 sugar.
Yeah,
I do eat fruit though. Do you eat fruit?
Yes.
Yeah,
That's the best.
I eat fruit. I eat fruit in the morning. It's great,
sure. Yeah,
man.
absolutely.
And now I'll eat like a steak once a month.
Sure.
Just once a month, just
Absolutely.
as a treat.
Yeah.
But I don't really miss that. And then so it's like chicken and fish,
Yeah, man.
And so you got rid of it all. And what are you eating? Are you eating quinoa?
Lots of salads.
Lots of salads.
And we just make our own. We'll do the Brussels sprout action.
I love Brussels sprouts.
Bake them up in the oven
Yeah.
and do all that, and just everything healthy that we can do. And she turned me on to like superfoods and things like that.
Yeah.
And that was amazing. Because I used to drink Red Bull on stage.
Yeah, fuck that.
Man, that's just
What do you mean, like blueberries and acai berries and stuff? Or what do you mean for superfoods?
Well, like for many years, I was on the Dr. Schultz. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but his superfood product, which is called Superfood Plus.
Superfood Plus.
And he's one of the originators, I suppose, of it. And
Is that green powder?
it's a green powder.
I know
It's
that one.
Not quite a powder. It looks like pot shake.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Like it looks.
Yeah.
It's not
right.
a powder. It's more of a
It's like a grind up, like almost a kale looking thing, right?
kind of. Yeah.
Like it's grinded up
Yeah.
Yeah.
It definitely looks like shake.
and it smells.
It smells pretty funny, and a lot of guys don't like the way it tastes.
Yeah.
Like I tried turning Chuck Billy onto it, and
Yeah.
he's like, "Oh God, that's fucking terrible."
Yeah.
Because he had a health scare not too long ago.
Yep.
And we fixed him up. You know, he had the same thing that I had, and I was able to diagnose Chuck.
Oh, wow.
You know,
He got diabetes too.
at the start of it, and he was. We jumped into the van one day, taking us from the hotel to the gig or whatever, and he was like, "Yeah, I was up all night. I didn't sleep real well. I've been getting these leg cramps."
Yeah.
Oh, leg cramps, eh? And he's like, so I asked him, are you getting up every 90 minutes to take a whiz at night? He's
Yeah.
like, yeah, every 90 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm like, shit. And is this and this happening? He's like, yeah. I'm like, Chuck, you're getting diabetes.
Yeah.
And he's like, no way. My family doesn't have that. I'm like, well, everything you've just told me about is all the exact same shit I went through. Sure enough, went home, got a test. His numbers, I remember, they were shocking, like 659.
Whoa.
And as a diabetic, your number needs to be right around 100 to 106 in terms of like all the sugars and all that sort of thing. And his was
103.
659. Yeah, that kind of thing. And his was 659. And so, he called me up and said, how do I fix this?
Yeah.
And so we put him on our plan, the plan that Laura put
So
me
what
on.
are you guys eating?
Like I say, lots of salads, and we don't vary much. But I'll make the salmon. I love salmon. Jesus,
Yeah,
that's
love
great.
salmon.
Totally. And we don't eat a lot of even chicken. Really, it's mostly a vegetarian based diet.
Are you eating quinoa or brown rice or beans or anything?
They explained that, I started to,
Yeah.
but then Lara is she found a way that, I don't think quinoa is the best thing for you. It's good to get, if you're diabetic, to get you off of rice and things like that.
Right.
But anything with any kind of, I suppose quinoa has some starches in it.
Right.
Just stay away from that, because when I was in death, when I was 27 years old, I lost 127 pounds, because I ballooned up in Dark Angel, and then I dropped it during death. However, I went fat-free at the time, and I hadn't noticed that just because something's fat-free doesn't mean it's not loaded in sugar.
Right.
And,
Oh, yeah.
And, it's got no fat in it, but it's got so much sugar that's creating the taste or the sweetness or whatever you're looking for. And I gave myself diabetes by losing 127 pounds.
Yeah, that's amazing, right?
I got diabetes from that.
I gave it to myself from juicing.
Oh, yeah, shit.
Because I was trying to be healthy, so
Yeah,
I was
sure.
juicing all day, every day.
Yeah, man.
You can drink all the green juice you want, but man, as soon as you start putting in like
the
bananas
fruits,
and beets and
man.
carrots and then apples and pear and fucking, all of a sudden you're just spiking your pancreas with like fucking, it takes like 40 oranges to make a big old orange juice,
Yeah, no
and
doubt.
you would never eat 40 oranges.
Yeah, good
When
point.
people start explaining it to you that way, you're like, oh, I get it.
Yeah, totally.
So you're not eating any grains? No. How about black beans? Where are you getting a little bit of? Do you eat in a steel cut oatmeal?
Yeah. We love the steel steel, like we make our own oatmeal.
Yeah.
And yeah, we've got an amazing recipe. And at some point, Lara and I are going to put out a effing cookbook. You know?
Really?
Why not? You know, because we have so many things that we can make. You
Yeah.
know, like we'll utilize some of the, you know, in like use some TVP instead of hamburger crumbles. You know, because that's
Yeah.
great, you know, and, you know, seitan and things like that. You know, we don't cook a lot of vegan or vegetarian necessarily, but we eat a lot. And our diet is essentially a vegetarian-based diet. Like we'll add salmon to the salads or whatever if we want some protein sort of
course.
thing. And
Where are you getting your protein? Are you getting it from this vegan powder?
Yes. And, you know, like for years I was doing the Dr. Schultz, and these days I have switched to this. It's a company called High on Life Superfoods, and you know you can reach their stuff at highonlifesuperfoods.com, and they have a superfood that is called Lit. That's one thing about superfoods is they don't taste great. You know,
No,
they're not supposed to. And,
Nope.
You know, my wife Laura says, "Man, it's way tougher to be a health guy than being a fucking alcoholic." You know,
Yeah,
like
it is.
booze tastes wonderful compared to some of
that
these
shit I
superfoods.
drink. It's funny. I was talking to somebody and they go, I go, "Oh yeah, man, I'm drinking these things. They just taste like dirt." And the guy was going like, "Oh yeah, my buddy tried to get me to drink some dirt, man." It's
Yeah.
like it does taste like dirt a lot of times, but this Lit stuff tastes good.
Yeah, it does. It
And it's hemp, right?
yeah, it's hemp based, and it's got all the essential nutrients, and it, like Lit, for instance, has cacao and maple and chai, and it's
The maple's not spiking your sugar.
it's not. It doesn't.
Wow.
And I'm stoked on that. You know, it's a slight amount of it, and any kind. Most superfoods do taste like dirt. Like Chuck Billy mentioned, he's like
Yeah.
it tastes like the bottom of a sunflower seed.
Yeah.
Bag, you know, I'm like, I get that. Yeah. I like the
Chuck,
taste of
yeah.
it, but I really enjoy the taste of Lit, and it's working. This is more of a pH balancer than like a spiking superfood like Dr. Schultz. You try that stuff, and you really do feel it. Like
Yeah.
I turned everybody onto Dr. Schultz a couple of years ago. I had Paul from Slayer on it,
Yeah.
and I turned Tom onto it, and Gary from Slayer is now a vegan, and
Holt's
Gary
vegan,
Holt's
huh?
vegan. Yeah,
Gary Holt.
yeah.
Gary Holt, guitar. Piranha.
Yeah,
He's vegan now,
he's
huh?
vegan. Totally. And
Whoa.
he's stoked. He's lost 20 pounds.
Yeah.
And he's all happy and all that. And I remember the first time Paul tried some superfood. This was in 2016 or whatever. We were on the road together, and he had come to me and he was saying, like, "Man, I'm trying to find an alternative to the Red Bull. You know,
Yeah.
I'm a Red Buller." And I'm like, "We both know that's not good for you." He's like, "I know." And I'm now starting to feel the effects of Red Bull, and I'm definitely not liking it. And I was like, "Hey, try this." And I turned him on to my superfood. And that night after the show, I went out and caught Slayer that night, and they were fucking on fire.
Yeah.
Like fuck fast, brutal, and tight and
Yeah.
heavy. And I caught every show. And
Yeah.
this show was just amped up just a little bit from the night before. And I hadn't seen Paul yet, but I saw his tech, Gene, at the time. And I passed him in the hallway after the show, like right after the show. And I was like, "Hey, man, how'd that superfood work out for Paul?" He's like, he loved it. He thought it was awesome. But he turns to me and he's like, "I think I took too much of this stuff.
Oh my God.
I can't rein in the ballads." I just thought that was hilarious. It's like, first of all, like, what Slayer song
Yeah.
is a ballad?
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
that's
like, well,
hilarious.
that's awesome.
Is the Lit? Is it a meal replacement? And how much protein's in it?
It can be. I'm not quite aware of the protein, but it does have quite a good number of protein in it.
Yeah.
And I'm noticing that when it comes to superfoods, a lot of times I can't drink them too late in the evening because it'll
Keep you up?
it has a tendency to do that if I'm really like feeling good. And Lit is letting me just get through my entire day. Like one thing on this last tour, since I've been doing Lit, was I play, obviously for Testament. There are some shows where I'd play for Anthrax.
Yeah.
And every day that there were video screens available, like the amphitheaters that have the big video screens on the side of the stage, I would then go direct those for Slayer. And that whole...
You would direct those?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
So you're picking up another check on the tour?
I work for the same amount of money that I did on that first tour.
Wow, free, huh? Holy shit.
Yeah, it's just we're out in the front of house every night, catching every Slayer show from right at the soundboard. And that, if you got to see this tour, this latest one, it is the apex of thrash metal show. The pyro and the tunes and just the lights and everything is so amazing about Slayer's show, with the exception of the video screens, which it's always a local crew to the, the house crew.
Right.
And a lot of those guys are like 65-year-old guys.
They don't know who's fucking playing what.
Yeah, here's Gary peeling off this killer lead, and they're filming Tom staring at Paul.
Yeah.
And, we're all watching that just like, fuck, man, you can't miss. The screens are giant. And so I just went to Slayer one day. I went to their people and just said, look, let me do this for you.
Yeah.
And they're like, holy fuck, would you?
Thank
you. Awesome, cool. And, it started with me sitting next to the guy, the director, like tapping him, like, pointing at that camera.
2, 3, 1, 2, 2, 1, 1, 2.
And I was just doing it for the leads, and that was an obnoxious way to do it. So I just started paying attention to what they were doing, and it was just like running that first light board when Tom asked me to do it years earlier. I didn't know what I was doing, but I can watch the guy and learn. It's all, I can learn this. And the one thing I noticed was, every night was completely different. When I started it, it was like one board would be one way the first night. The next night would be a completely different board, completely different lighting, camera package.
So all house gear.
Yeah, so sometimes they would have 2 guys in the pit and 1 guy at the front of house. Sometimes they'd only had 2 RoboCams at front of house, nobody in the pit, and it was just like I'm throwing myself into the deep end with this, but I learned it, and I started putting together a show, and fortunately on the second leg, the last leg, most of the boards were the same, so it's like, oh God, thank God, finally something. The cameras can change every night, the package of cameras can change every night, but at least these boards are starting to become the same, because God, that first month I was doing it was every night was so different. And sometimes you're under the stage doing it, that's where they have placed.
Oh
you hear thumping right above you, and sometimes it's up a hill, sometimes it's in where the backstage area is at, sometimes it's in a truck, and the whole everything changes from night to night. But it was just something to do, and it kept me very engaged on the tour, because on that very first leg of the Slayer run, Testament was the first band going on at 5 p.m. and we're done by 5:35.
Then you're just sitting around.
I've got nothing to
8
do
hours.
till bus call, and it's like, what do you do? So getting to play for Anthrax, that was helpful, because on the first, I had a couple of weeks to prepare for that.
Yeah.
And
what happened? Charlie was family or he's having a baby, or what was going on?
Well, it's just kind of built into their system, and Charlie's got his reasons for why this occurs, and a lot of they have a backup guy ready to go when this happens, and Charlie and I got to talking before the tour, and it just I'm there.
Yeah.
Why not use Gene? I've done it before, like a few years ago. I guess it was like 2012 or so, maybe 2013. On the first day of the Anthrax Testament tour of that period, Charlie had come to me and said, look, I have to go home, like ASAP. His mother was in the process of passing away. At the time, she was just really sick.
Right.
And he's like, if all our regular guys that we reach out to for this, they can't do it at this short notice.
Yeah.
So we are in a bind, and if you can't do it, then we have to pull off the tour, and I think the tour is probably going to be just flat out canceled.
Yeah.
And so I was like, wow, that's, there's 35 people on this tour that are all going to have to go home. So it's like, okay, well, let me figure this out. Yeah, well, of course I can, I can do it. So all I did was I sat behind Charlie and I filmed his show for the next night or that night or whatever. I just filmed a show and I learned it over a couple of days and I played his kit, and his kit is completely set up different to mine. I have a totally different setup.
But you just played it set up how it was, huh?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Just
now on this run, you play some nights and he's not playing.
There was there was a few nights where he'd exit the tour for a few days, and I'm there. I just jump off with Testament, change into an Anthrax shirt, and jump on with Anthrax. And I love doing that, and that's one thing that Superfood is super helpful with. Because that just like gets your whole body just aligned, and that's why I was really stoked on the lit stuff on this tour because it's just like I'm not a big coffee drinker. I'll drink it at home, but I'm a napper on tour.
Big time.
So that's how I get my energy. I'll take a little nap before the show. And Testament was going on so early that it's kind of hard to get a nap in at 3:30 in the afternoon.
Yeah, right. Naps to me are around 5:30.
Absolutely.
Nap time, and because then I'm doing comedy and I'm out all night.
Yeah.
So I'd like to try that lit stuff because what happens is when I got the diabetes, when I first lost all the weight and everything, my main problem was I was really afraid what to eat and stuff. So I was eating 3 meals a day, and my doctor was like, dude, you need to eat a 4th because you're not like a normal person. You don't go to bed at 11 o'clock.
Sure, yeah.
You're out till 2, so you need one more meal.
Yeah, sure.
Because what was happening with me was by the time I got here on stage, we're at the Comedy Store, by the way, doing this interview. When I'd get here on stage around 11 o'clock, I would be faded.
Yeah, sure.
And really couldn't even remember some of the jokes and stuff because your brain is starving,
Absolutely.
So it was what happened with me was I started eating these no-cal protein bars, these vegan protein bars by this kid who's like 20 years old, invented them. I had him on the podcast.
Oh, cool.
And these saved my life. I eat one. They're 21 grams of protein, full vegan, clean,
Nice.
and I felt great. And it's helped me for the. But I wouldn't mind trying a shake also.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's a good thing. It doesn't spike you.
Yeah.
But it just I'm just like, holy crap, this is like the 8th show in a row where I haven't gotten my nap, but I've played the show. I played with Anthrax. I got a Slayer thing in an hour, so grab a quick bite to eat and jump in the shower after my Anthrax show and then be ready for Slayer. And my days would start, wake up at 9:30, 10 in the morning, and they wouldn't end until Slayer gets off at, 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
And I'm just going all day. And stuff like, even if people don't even try lit, if they try any kind of superfood, that's all good for you. But
are you testing your blood still, or you just don't do it anymore? Because I kind of stopped.
I stopped.
Yeah, after like 3 months, I was doing it and I was like, it's always the same.
Yeah.
And you can tell.
Absolutely.
Once you get yourself back to normal, you can tell when you're being a piece of shit.
Big time.
Your body will let you know right away.
Absolutely.
Shit will happen like, your legs will be sore, or you'll be really faded, or you'll feel bloated.
Absolutely.
You can start feeling fat all of a sudden. It's weird. Just from, if you put on 5 pounds, you're like, oh, I put on weight.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, yeah, I notice all of that. If I've ever, of course I've blown it. And yes, I don't have the best discipline on the road. And one thing I noticed on this Slayer run, both runs that we had, was I was eating like Testament was playing an hour and 40-minute set.
Right.
And you can't really do that. You got to practice some portion control and, don't, like say if I would ever have some sweets or something, or if I would go nuts on the sweets or do something that was not good for me, you feel it. Your leg starts feeling weird, and it's like, okay, well, stop doing that.
Yeah.
Your body is,
It tells you.
It tells you it has the power to heal itself. Like there is no disease that cannot be treated, I feel.
Yeah, I feel that way too.
Yeah.
I feel that way too. My buddy said he had some kind of cyst in his mouth, and he quit sugar and stuff, and the cyst shrank away.
Yeah,
It's
sure.
gone.
I
you know?
see that. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
You know, sugar is jagged.
How much weight did you lose?
This time I have lost I lost 140 pounds, and I've got a long way to go. But you know, I probably put on 10 on that Slayer run, which is a lot for me.
Yeah.
And I'm super bloaty right now. Like I didn't have this going into into that tour. But
Yeah.
you know, now that I'm home, and you know, the tour just finished last week, so now that I'm home and I had my birthday week, last week when I got back, and
Happy birthday.
Oh, thank you very much. You know, and we try to be cool about it. We try not to go super nuts, you know, and do many stupid things that you can on birthdays and holidays and stuff like that. But now that I'm home, I like being home because, you know,
You get into that regimen.
Absolutely.
Proper eating.
I love it.
You know, you go to the gym or anything?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Totally. And I just was able to start a few days ago, and you know, I love this, you know, lifestyle or whatever. I love eating healthy. I love, you know, when I started the very first time, you know, back when I was like 27 and I lost 127 pounds, I remember just thinking, you've had enough cheeseburgers to last you, you know. You've
good.
eaten enough. I know what they're like. You know,
Yeah.
Every junk food ever, you've had enough of
You
it.
go the Impossible Burger or Beyond Burger?
I haven't tried either, but I've heard about them.
The Beyond Burger's incredible.
I just did something with I don't know if you're familiar with the vegan black metal chef.
Yeah?
If you're familiar with his YouTube channel or anything.
No.
I just did something with him yesterday, and he was explaining the same thing. You know, the
Beyond Burgers are
the Beyond
great.
just destroys the Impossible. So
It's great. I love the Beyond Burger. I eat the Beyond Burger. I get it, and I put some vegan cheese on it,
Yeah,
and
man.
some mustard, and sometimes I'll drop it into some black bean pasta. I do some quinoa black bean pasta.
Killer.
You know, and I get into like clean eating, man. It's like
Yeah,
really
man.
cool. And I think the main key thing to clean eating is, and I say this many times, I just didn't know. So, you know,
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
oh, what am I eating? This is incredible. They go, oh, well, this is all plant-based, so
Yeah.
you're good to go.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're like, God, well, this is incredible. If I
Yeah.
knew, I could eat this the rest of my life.
Absolutely.
You know, it's like I know everything about a '49 Harley. I don't know one thing about my body.
Yeah, sure.
It's weird how dumb we are with our bodies, right?
Absolutely.
It's crazy.
Yeah, big time. And that's, you know, I'm fortunate to have a wife and best friend that has been my guide.
That's great.
In all of this, and I think that's something important for everybody. If you're not able to learn these things on your own, if you have somebody that can help direct you, you know, and that was one way that I learned, oh, that way I lost all that weight, that gave me diabetes because, you know, the first time, now I do everything properly.
Yeah.
And you just feel better, and there's work involved.
There's
as
work
you know.
involved.
Yeah, you know, that's
But you know where there's no work involved is death.
yeah.
You can die and just tap out.
Yeah, man.
You know, a lot of people do. It's funny. Like people go, "Hey, can I buy you a drink?" I go, "I don't drink diabetes," and they go, "Yeah, me too." But you know, and I'm like, "What?" Yeah,
Yeah, man.
I don't know. You know?
I like living. I like being on this planet, and
I love being on this planet.
that's one thing that, you know, it's like I'm 51 now. I've
Yeah.
been doing this for 35 years, and I intend to be playing, like, you know, brutal thrash metal into my 70s.
Yeah.
You know, and bringing it, not just being like some, oh yeah, you still
Well,
trying.
that'd be crazy to think, right?
It is going to
you're
be
going
crazy.
Like, whoa, Gene Hoglan, that guy's like 70. What
Yeah.
a legend!
Still killing
in
it.
the game for 50
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
You know, playing
Absolutely.
speed metal. and
Absolutely.
thrash, yeah.
That is my intent.
Yeah.
And that's why I figure I can get away at age 51 with this carriage that I have, this body that I, you know, yeah, I'm not 410 pounds anymore. I'm in the 270 range, but I feel like I'm 27.
Yeah.
You know, I jump up from chairs. You know, Lara tells me, yeah, you jump up off the bed. You used to have to take like 3 stabs at getting off the bed.
Wow.
3, you know,
like
momentum
twisties.
pushers. Yeah, to get yourself up and off.
Here you go. All right.
Yeah. So now I just get up and jump up, and my playing is better than it's been. I've got the stamina of twice myself at this age when I was 27, and I feel 27, but I figure when I'm 70, I imagine that in order to be doing what I'm doing, what I want to be doing, and what I'm doing now, and stepping it up even further, I'm assuming that I will have to drop a lot of weight to do that. So I figure when I'm 70, I'm going to be a cut 70, like this total He-Man of 70. And then I might feel like I'm 22.
Well, you got to get rid of that weight because your joints start to wear out.
And that's what I figured.
And you can't hold it all, you know?
Yeah.
What do you got coming up, man? I can't thank you enough, first of all, for coming and doing the show. You came up from San Diego, and I really appreciate it.
I appreciate the
and,
time,
I'm a big fan of amazing drummers, and you are definitely. I've had a lot of great drummers on here,
cool.
And I'm just so happy to have you on. What do you have coming up?
Well, gosh, what do we have coming up?
Some more Testament.
There will be some more Testament stuff coming up. We've got we've got a show in Mexico. That's I guess the next thing that I'm doing, a one-off in Mexico
With Slayer and Anthrax?
Yeah, with them and Lamb of God, and it's a huge festival in Mexico City, I believe.
Oh, that's got to be loony.
Yeah,
Mexico City loves metal.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, beyond anyone.
Yeah. Oh, and well, you know, Santiago, Chile.
My God, another one. Wow.
That's psychosis there.
Yeah.
You know, all South American.
Yeah,
Central
South
America.
America. I mean,
sick for it, and it's awesome. Those guys are the best fans. You know, I got to admit. You know, that's the most psycho shows ever. And then directly after that, we've got Dark Angel playing the California Death Fest up in the Bay Area.
Oh, sick!
Up in Oakland.
Oakland, when's that?
That's on October 13th. And I forget the venue it's at, but like the Metro or something like that.
Yeah.
Maybe the Fox or something. But it's a great venue, you know, and we're super stoked for that because that's going to be our first U.S. show in a while.
Wow.
So that's going to be a kick-ass show, and that's October 13th. And so, you know, anybody out there, check that out. And then I know Testament has things I can't announce yet. That's right.
All good, yeah.
Got some shows coming up that are going to be pretty special, and one of them is going to be...
Wow, that's going to be cool, man. I can't wait to... I love Chuck, man.
Yeah, man.
I grew up with those guys.
That's awesome.
Yeah, man. It's funny, you know, it's like... Louis used to be my neighbor.
No shit.
Yeah.
Man, we see Louis all the time. He comes out to all the shows.
Yeah,
still, man. He comes
so
out and hangs
great.
out for a couple of days. Louis great.
Great, man. Tell Chuck I said hi.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, that's great.
It was fantastic to have you on. You got Instagram and Twitter. Do you fuck around with that stuff?
I have all that.
I know somebody just followed me as you, so it must be your management or something.
Yeah, well, somebody knows how to do that for me. Yeah. I freely admit I've got a butler. You know,
I've got a butler.
Man, I don't know how people have time to. You know, I see people on the road all the time, just in their phone all the time, Facebooking. I'm like, where? Like, I've got shit I've got to do, man. I don't get the time to do this. I want your life.
Well, thank you so much for doing the show.
Thank you, Gene. It's been amazing.
And go out and see Gene. And he's got a bunch of DVDs out. He brought me one. He has some DVDs. He's you can catch them all over YouTube. One of the best thrash speed metal drummers of all time, and I cannot thank you enough for doing the show.
You, Dean.
Thank
really
you.
Appreciate it, man.
Also, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast on iTunes or YouTube or SoundCloud, Stitcher, All Things Comedy, Spotify. It's all out there. And keep the candles lit. This episode is brought to you by my fantastic sponsor, Wyco Vintage, the best vintage t-shirt company in the world. You want to find your favorite rock t-shirt? I don't know who you love, Gene. You've always wanted to find an old shirt.
Dude, that sounds deadly.
Yeah, these
That
guys
sounds awesome.
have over 3,000 vintage concert shirts.
Nice.
Man, I just got a Point of Entry shirt from them.
No,
that's
kick ass.
mint from the Point of Entry tour.
Is that one of those white ones with the black sleeves? I remember
They had
seeing those,
the
all
baseball
those
jerseys.
baseball
And I also got a Maiden from the 82 Number of the Beast tour from them.
absolutely.
Mint. Anyway, they got like 3,000 shirts. Incredible. WycoVintage.com. They also buy your old collections if you got stuff that doesn't fit you anymore. Call them up or email them. Hit their website. Use the code DELRAZOR and you'll get a great, great deal from them. Thank you guys for tuning in. Keep the candles lit. See ya.